And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pumpkin Copter cast, a good old podcast about video games. Today I am joined by Oleg, who's going to talk to us about the Boston Festival of Indie Games.
Hi, yeah. So we actually call it Boston Fig Fest now.
Oh,
Boston Fig is the name of the organization, and Boston Fig Fest is the name of the festival.
okay. Good for me to know. So we'll start with the basic who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So as you said, I'm Oleg Brodsky. I'm the festival chair for Boston Fig Fest 2018. I'm also the COO for Boston Fig. So a lot of what I do is with the festival is making sure that everything is in place for it to run when it's time for it to run. I'm more of an overseer at this point than getting my hands dirty with the nitty gritty of things. And with the organization, I help make sure that we can continue to host wonderful events. We started with the festival. Now we also run Boston Fig Talks in January. Um, we also now run Boston Game Loop in August, and we're working on a new event, Boston Fig Learns, which we're hoping to have the first one this November.
Okay. So yeah, just as like a basic rundown. What is Boston? I mean, it was formerly the Boston Festival of Indie Games, and now it's Boston Fig Fest. So, what is Boston Fig Fest exactly?
Yeah, so Boston Fig Fest is it's a convention, sort of like PAX. For those who've been to that, we have over 100 games in our curated showcase. We also have about 100 other games through sponsors. So we have games from all over the world, but obviously we have a heavy focus in the New England region
Mhm.
and the Northeast more broadly. And those are games that we curate. They submitted to our team, who basically plays through all of them, provides feedback, and selects the best of the best. And we give them a spot on the showcase floor. And then we have a number of sponsors who are very kind to us and spend their money to come to Boston Fig Fest, show off their cool stuff, and make sure that we can keep running this convention. Um, on top of that, we also have an artist alley where local artists can show off their work and sell it to those that are interested. We have a free play area where if you need to relax, you just need to sit down for a while and you want to play a board game. It's classic games like Ticket to Ride and Monopoly and anything more advanced than that. Settlers of Catan, for example, is available. And we also have some physical activities. We have stuff like boffer fighting. We have a scavenger hunt, and a couple more things that we're working on that we're excited to show on September 29th at Boston Fig Fest.
I'm excited. I remember taking last year. I remember taking my cousin to it, and she had a blast. And her favorite game is actually the Boston Figs winner, which I believe is Super Slime Arena.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we thought that game was really excellent, so it's hard not to give it an award.
Mhm. Um, I like it just because going to lots of conventions allows me to put lots of games on my radar. I mean, in addition to all the games that were at Boston Fig Fest last year, the one that got my attention the most, I believe, was Perception by Bill Gardner of the Deep End Games, and it was the first game that really made me aware that the Nintendo Switch has access to like a huge library of games of varying genres, and not just the what Nintendo is making.
Yeah, there's a ton of indie games, including Perception, that have shown off at Boston Fig Fest in this year and in the past. And Perception was actually our best in show 2 years ago. So we also were really excited by what that game did.
Okay, so Yep. So moving on down the list, like when exactly was Boston Fig founded, and who founded it?
So Boston Fig was founded 6 years ago in 2012. It was founded by a number of people. The only one of the folks that's sort of still really remaining is Caroline Murphy, who's our CEO. Another person, so the other folks in that list were Clara Fernandez Vara, Dan Silvers, Fiona Cherbak, uh, Justin, geez, I'm blanking on Justin's name. I want to say it wasn't Silvers, but I apologize to Justin. I can't remember his name. Justin Rounds, maybe, and Rick Eberhardt. And they basically had this idea for sort of a PAX East style convention, but much more focused, much more grounded, and much more accessible to both the wider public and to indie developers themselves. You know, we're a lot smaller, but our costs for attendees, for ticket prices, and for developers to show off their work is much smaller than it takes to get into something like PAX East.
Okay. So you mentioned this a bit already, but like, how does Boston Fig Fest work? Like, how does it work? Like the gears and the machinery of it.
Well, it's a long process to put a convention together. I can only imagine what it's like for something as big as PAX East. For us, it takes usually about 9 months of planning.
Yeah.
We start very early on, mostly with planning around our curation stuff, figuring out our dates, tweaking our process, and stuff like that. Curation takes the biggest, widest chunk of time. Then after that, it's figuring out exactly what date we're going to be, what facilities we're going to use, what activities we're going to have, soliciting sponsors, and then just generally marketing the event to folks to do to come to. Obviously, you know, we don't have a convention if people don't show up. No one would be interested if none of our developers or sponsors would be interested in showing off their work if there was no one to show it to. So for us, really, it's a big deal to get folks, and that's why we love stuff like this to get the word out and encourage folks to come and check out all these awesome games that folks have been working on.
Okay. So the fifth question is a bit redundant at this point, since it's how long has it been going on? And you mentioned that it's roughly the like everything Boston Fig Fest related is like roughly 6 years old since it started in 2012.
Yeah, this is our seventh one now. It's crazy that it's been this long.
My goodness, I'm just remembering the first time I went to it, and I guess I was got there like back when it was still getting its legs.
Yeah,
You,
it's changed a lot over the years. Our very first year, we were in a couple classrooms, and we were expecting something like 50 to 100 people to show up, and over 400 showed up, and now we get almost 4,000 annually. So things have changed quite a bit over the years.
I guess so. So, as someone who has like literally no knowledge as to how a convention of this or any type works, like how do you and everyone else like on Boston Fig Fest staff like determine who does and doesn't get a spot?
So we have a curation team. We have two VPs of curation, Mary Ovina, who's the VP of digital, and Tim Blank, who's the VP of tabletop. Um, they put together the curation teams and directors who will manage those teams, and they, with those teams, work to figure out who the winner of the various awards will be. I do want to be clear. I do not choose. I do not talk to them about their process at that level. I don't uh, usually give them any feedback or anything like that until after the event, because I want them to make the decision based on what they're seeing and what they're playing. Uh, and it's a long process. We go through several rounds of playing games. By the end of it, the games that are up for awards are played by just about everybody that can play them.
Hmm.
And then once they've gotten all the feedback, all the scores, they have long conversations to figure out, okay, who of the games that are up for awards, who do we feel is best equipped for it? So that's part of the reason that it takes so long, and that's a process that they're finishing up right now. Actually,
Yeah.
we're hopeful that in the next few weeks we'll be able to start talking about some of the games that we're excited about. I don't want to spoil anything, but obviously the day of the event, the last thing we do is the Figgies, which is our award show where we hand out our awards for the games that we feel are most deserving, and that's where we will announce the winners.
Okay. Um, so again, we could just cross the next question off, which is how a winner for like Boston Fig Fest is determined, and you already explained it pretty well. So we'll move on to my favorite question that everyone always understands clearly and no one is ever confused about ever. In your opinion, Oleg, is video games?
I guess I'd have to say yes. I've been playing games for 20 years or so. It's hard to say no to that question at this point.
Okay. So you mentioned this a bit earlier about like how do you and the rest of the staff like promote the event?
By coming on to podcasts just like this. That's one of the avenues. We also have a Twitter presence at Boston Fig, which where we talk about what's going on with our various events, provide updates on cool things. So one of the things that we've been talking about recently is for those interested in volunteering for the event. Our application is open and we're looking for more volunteers. If you are curious about what games are going to be in the showcase, we've announced that about a week ago. And you can see that list on bostonfig.com, which has more information about each of those games, as well as information about the developers, where you can find those games, where you can buy them, etc. We also have a Facebook page, Boston Fig. We just got that name changed the other day, actually. Facebook was kind enough to let us update our branding. And then there are a number of folks with personal accounts who mention this stuff. The other thing I want to mention is with Boston Game Loop, since that is a separate event and is new to the organization, that has its own Twitter account at Boston Game Loop and its own website, bostongameloop.com.
Okay, then. So, like, what are some of the challenges that Boston Fig, faces? Like, what are some of like the less ideal parts of it that a typical convention goer might not be privy to?
So our biggest problem right now, and thankfully this is a good problem for us to have, is that we are rapidly outgrowing the space that we currently have. We've been at the Johnson Athletic Center at MIT now for, this will be our sixth time there. And when we first started, we were getting about 1,000 people. And like I said, we're getting up to 4,000 now. And there's just not enough space there. We have a lot more interest from developers and sponsors and attendees than we can always house in the space that we have. Especially with us trying to do additional activities, like we've had Quidditch in the past, we've had movie showings, we've had a concert. So what we've realized is that we need to start thinking about either additional spaces or other spaces entirely. Unfortunately, MIT does not have a bigger space for us to move to. We do want to keep it in the Boston area. We do want it to be Boston Fig, after all. We do want to make sure that it's convenient for people to access. That means that it has to be accessible via public transportation, and that has to be you have to be able to find a place to park your car if you're coming in from farther away. That's our biggest challenge right now. We're working on it. We don't have anything to announce at this time, but we're hopeful that we'll have a solution for next year.
Okay. Flipping that to the other side, what are some goals Boston Fig they would like to meet in the future?
So our most immediate goal is we want to continue to increase our attendance. We want more and more folks to come see the awesome stuff that we've managed to corral for you. We're pretty confident that we'll be able to beat our attendance record this year, just based on the way that ticket sales have been going so far. Longer term, we would love to turn this from a 1-day convention into a 2-day convention. There are some costs associated with that, but it is by far one of the most prominent and consistent things that we hear from attendees, sponsors, and developers is that they want the ability to show off for more than just 1 day. And we would love to give it to them. We just want to make sure that we can do it in a way that's sustainable, and be sure that we're not raising prices for people in a way that is prohibitive. One of our most important attributes is that we are accessible. We want to maintain that accessibility. So we are very careful whenever we talk about raising prices to be sure that we are doing so because it is beneficial for as many people as we can make it. Obviously, anytime you raise prices, there are people who are going to be unable to either attend, sponsor, or exhibit. We understand that, so we want to be very careful about how we do that. But that's probably, if we end up doing a 2-day convention, that's probably going to be a long conversation that we have to have.
Okay. And yeah, that brings us to the end of this particular episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast. I would like to thank Oleg for agreeing to this and putting up with all of my technological incompetence behind the scenes.
No worries, Tyler. I appreciate you inviting me and reaching out to us to put this together.
And yes, so as soon as this is up in clickable video form, as soon as it's presentable on YouTube, there'll be a link to the Boston Figs website and their Twitters, so you can catch up on that. On those rare occasions I post anything with listening to, you can follow me on the Twitters at tgorman83. If any of the -7 people listening to this are enjoying this, feel free to like and subscribe to the Pumpkin Copter Cast. And before we sign off, Oleg, is there anything else you wish to plug?
It's like I said, at Boston Fig, bostonfig.com. If you want to follow me personally, I'm at indie_intern. That's INDIE_INTERN. And keep listening to the Pumpkin Copter Cast.
Okay, that brings us to the end. We'll hopefully see you all again next time.
Thank you so much.